Assalamu alaikum. Have a good day. Welcome to Financial Management eLearning. We are going to discuss business ethics, corporate governance, and corporate laws. Today, we are in module 14. It is the continuations of previous modules, and we are in corporate governance domain. So today we will discuss the role of the board in establishing corporate governance standards, corporate governance code, the UK corporate governance code, policies and procedure for best practice companies, the regulatory governance framework for companies, the stakeholders benefits for corporate governance. So, the role of the board in establishing corporate governance standards. So we know the corporate governance means the establishing a strategic direction, execute a strategy and manage risks, ensure compliance with policies, standards and procedure, and overall corporate governance. In Bangla, we are saying it's Pratishthanik Sushashan. So the corporate governance, the role of the board in establishing corporate governance standards through maintaining a code of business and conduct and ethics, which will articulate for employees, shareholders, customers, and suppliers the standards of conduct, including conflict of interest matter to which the company expects to adhere. Board should also be required to abide by the code of conduct. The board should also be required to abide by the code of conduct. The company's business is managed under the direction of the board of directors. We know it. So, board of directors need effective and efficient board of directors for a good company. The board delegates to the CEO or managing director that through the individual to the senior management the authority and responsibility for managing the company's business. The board role is to oversee the management and governance of the company and to monitor senior management performance. So the role of the board in establishing corporate governance standards are to select individual for boards, who would be the effective and efficient, and the select and monitor evaluation need for the top management, as should the management succession planning, review and provide significant corporate action, review and approve the company's annual operating plan and budget. So, here we see fair and transparent oversight of management along with the various kinds of overview point to raise corporate value while showing the seeds of sustaining growth. Review and monitor implementation of a management strategic plan and review the company's financial control and reporting system. So here we see the corporate governance, it is the risk framework, that means overview, oversight, and cultural value of the company, so maintaining it and the compliance, regulatory compliance and risks. So here it is the oversight and risks mitigate through the internal control and culture and compliance, etc. compliant through the internal audit. And here also if we see that the risks and compliance in the IT or system audit, also the corporate governance infrastructure, oversight and culture, it is the combination of overall effort within the organization. So review and approve the company's financial statement is the good for corporate governance activities and review the company's ethical standard and legal compliance program, oversee the company's management, enterprise risks, monitor relation and shareholder employees, etc. So we can say that the role of the board in establishing corporate governance standards are huge and what we described above. Okay, so now it is the corporate governance code, the UK corporate governance code. So we know the first version of the UK corporate governance code, that means that code was produced in 1992 by the Cadbury Committee. It's paragraph 2.5 is still the classic definition of that the corporate governance is the system by which companies are directed and controlled. Boards of directors are responsible for the governance of their companies. The shareholders' role in governance is to appoint the directors and the auditors and the satisfied themselves that the appropriate governance structure in the place. The structure is in place. The responsibilities of the board include setting and company's strategic aims, providing the leadership or put them into the effort, supervising the management of the business, and reporting the shareholders on their stewardship. The board's action are subject to laws, regulation, and the shareholders in general meeting. So it is the 2.5 paragraph of Cadbury report. It is the first of UK corporate governance code. To see the UK regulatory framework is the combined code. The main source of the corporate governance in the UK is the Times combined code. In Bangladesh, we have the corporate governance code released by the Securities and Exchange Commission in 2018. So it is the latest version. So we discussed this earlier also. If you go to the website of SSC and read it, please. So the main source of corporate governance in the UK is the combined code. It is important to recognize that following the combined code is not a legal requirement. However, the London Stock Exchange requires all listed companies to include in their annual report a statement of compliance and not compliance with the code. Okay, the principle of the code is encourage all involved in the companies accept the legal obligation, encourage the scrutiny or corporate stewardship, impose certain checks and control on executive directors by without restricting their commercial enterprise aspect of the government. The combined code definition the following best practice, and in September 2014, the UK Corporate Governance Code, the code was most recently amended. And if you see the history of UK Corporate Governance Code is studied in 1992 through the Cadbury report, then Green report in 1995, then Hampel report 1998, then Travel report 1999, and the report 2013, then 2005, and also 2010 the UK Corporate Governance Code, and 2012. Again, 2014, risks and viability, and 16 added the audit update, and 17 the comprehensive code review, as this is going on. So the main principle of the code is it has the 5 section. Section 1, leadership. Section 2 or B, effectiveness. C, accountability. D, remuneration. E, relation with shareholders. So every company should be headed by the effective board, which is collectively responsible for the long-term success of the company. So it is the main theme of the leadership It is the section 1 of corporate governance code. The code provisions recommended regular board meeting, and the chairman would be the separate, and it advocated the non-executive to apply stipulations in the word the challenge and system management effective system. So if you see section B, effectiveness, the board and its committee should have the appropriate balance of skill, experience, independence, and knowledge of the company to enable them to discharge their respective duties and responsibility effectively. The size, skill, experience, and balance of non-executive and executive directors should be within the effectiveness. So effective board of directors would be. And if we see the C section, it is the accountability. The board should represent a clear balance and understandable assessment of the company's position and prospects. The board also review the top management of the company. So board should represent a clear, balanced, and understandable assessment of the company's position and prospect of the annual report. D, remuneration. The executive director's remuneration should be designed to promote the long-term success of the company. So there should be a formal and a transparent procedure to developing policy and executive remuneration and for existing the remuneration package for individual directors. No director should be involved in deciding his or her own remuneration. So it is a section there. If we see the section E, it is the relation with shareholders. There should be a dialogue with shareholders based on the mutual understanding of object. The board as a whole has a responsibility for ensure that a satisfactory dialogue with shareholders takes place. The board should use general meeting to communicate with investors and to encourage their participants. So all directors should be fully aware of the shareholders' concern and opinion, even though the CEO and finance director will have more direct influence with major shareholders. The annual general meeting is an effective way to maintain a contact with shareholders, and the directors should encourage the shareholder participants. It was the main theme of the combined code. So we see here the UK Corporate Governance Code. It has the 5 sections. Section A, leadership; B, effectiveness; C, accountability; D, remuneration; E, relation with shareholders. The policies and procedure for best practice companies. So if we see that the board of a company has the responsibility to approve and ensure they are monitoring the compliance with all significant policies and procedure, ensure the policies and procedure are in place so that the corporation operation all times within the applicable laws and regulations, the compliance should be followed up. And so if you see here corporate governance, it has the I know that every company has the vision, mission, strategy, objective, and set goal within. So corporate governance is interrelated within all things, where board of directors committee, board committee, that means audit committee, risk management committee, executive committee, selection and remuneration committee, legal and regulatory framework is interrelated with that, and organization structure, monitor and control, internal control, and also we know the internal control is 3 components: internal audit, internal monitoring, and internal compliance. So a transparency and accountability, policy and procedure, everything if we do, then the corporate governance or the best practice would be possible within the organization. That the board of directors can encourage that will benefit for every company for corporate governance. So build a strong qualified board of directors and evaluate performance, define role and responsibility of CEO, board, everyone. So emphasize the integrity and ethical dealing within the organization, and evaluate the performance and make principal compensation decision, and encourage the effectiveness of the risk management within the organization. So it is the, if we see here the policy and procedure for best practice companies, it is the help for determining or establishing, it would be help for establishing a good corporate governance within the organization. See, now the regulatory governance and framework for companies. So if we see here the framework for corporate governance, it can be internal, external, also can be private. So if you see the internal, that the shareholders and board of directors, and they report to appoint and monitor the management, operation and core function. If you see the external, this is the regulatory compliance standard, example accounting and auditing standard, laws and regulation. If bank is have to follow the central bank's rules and regulation. If insurance have to follow the IFRS rules and regulation, etc. So every sector have the primary regulator also. Also, if the listed securities have to follow the securities rules and regulations. So here the external also financial sector, debt, equities, depending on that, and also the market, competitive factors, foreign market, local market, and also the foreign direct investment, corporate control. If we see the stakeholders within internal, external, it is the doing as a framework of corporate governance, doing as a breeze. So reputation agency, accountant, lawyers, credit rating, investor, invest banking, etc. is the stakeholder within both internal and external framework for corporate governance. So corporate governance refers to the land of laws, regulation, and an appropriate voluntary private sector practice which enable the corporate to attain financial and human capital, perform efficiently, and thereby perform efficiently. Framework is system for appropriate, identify the management, oversight responsibility, where the corporate governance should be established effectively. A corporate governance framework is a guide for the board, mechanism for definition the organization, establishing the good corporate governance within the organization. So key to sustaining the resilience. Also the board responsibility for the governance, corporate governance transparency, director competence and commitment, board of accountability and objectivity, independent board leadership, integrity, ethics and responsibility, attend to information agency and strategy, protection to agent board enhancement, and shareholders unit to direct sector and shareholders communication. It is the corporate governance structure. Also we say the regulatory framework also. So if we see the framework, a component of the framework is the ethics and integrity, mission, vision, strategy, governance structure and process, operational financial risks, management performance, executive leadership, stakeholders expand, self-assessment. It is the framework component for corporate governance. And if we see the characteristics, it would be the ownership, corporate, relevant, clear and understandable, conscious, easily acceptable, or easily accessible, laws and regulation and current, etc. is the characteristics. So how to improve the corporate governance framework? We can improve by establishing or adapting a corporate philosophy or mission. Okay, to identify the risk profile, risk attitude, and how much or which level would be able to tolerate the risk. Also define the ethical climate, design the assurance methodology, design corporate governance structure, policies and process, design monitoring process, identify and assess stakeholders management, implement a board self-assessment process. It is that this way we can improve our corporate governance framework. Stakeholder benefit. So corporate governance is the interaction between various parties, shareholder, board of directors, company's management, in shaping corporate performance and the way of processing towards corporate governance. If we see here, there is lot of stakeholders within the organization, within the corporation, and look here is the governing the relationship, governing a strategic change, governing the organization people, financial governance, and governing the viability of sustainability, everything related to the governance of the organization. So look here, governing the relationship, it is dependent on communication, reputation of the organization, authorization, and stakeholders on peer review. Also the governing strategic planning, portfolio, and organization, benefit relation, etc. Everything is depending on the corporate governance within the organization. So a stakeholder benefited use. Corporate governance deals with the manner the provision the financial guarantee themselves to getting fair return of their investments. So corporate governance also deals with determining the way of effective strategic decision, and corporate governance they ensure transparency, they ensure a strong and balanced economic benefit. Also, corporate governance has a board share. So if we see here, the benefit of stakeholders through corporate governance, huge benefit. What is that? Good corporate governance ensure corporate success and economic growth. And a strong corporate governance maintain the investors' confidence, as a result of which company can be raise capital efficiently and effectively. It lowers the capital cost. There is a positive impact of the share price, and good corporate governance also minimize wastage, corruption, risks, and mismanagement within the organization. It helps in brand perform the develop, and it ensure organization and manage the manner the best interest for that, etc. So it is the benefit of stakeholders through corporate governance. So corporate governance, it is the vital thing for organization. It go a good organization where corporate governance is established, the organization will be benefiting different ways. So today we discuss the role of the board of establishing corporate governance standards, the corporate governance code, the UK corporate governance code, and so policies and procedure for best practice companies, the regulatory governance framework for companies, the stakeholders benefit. So but with this item, we are concluding the corporate governance domain. As for today, inshallah, we will meet with you again with my next module. Till then, Allah Hafiz.